Chapter 47. Peak of the 8th Layer. However, Wang Fei did not have Kang Chon's talent. With his strength at the early 7th level of Foundation Establishment, he was simply unable to defeat Kang Chon, who was at the peak of the 7th level of Foundation Establishment, and the gap between the two sides' strengths had grown wider and wider. After this punch, Wang Fei spat out blood and flew. His face was pale and his eyes were filled with despair. The punch that Kang Chon had given him was not only a physical injury, but also a mental injury. Once upon a time, he, Wang Fei, was the most talented among the Wang family's children. But after the bar mitzvah, Kang Chon stepped on his body and laughed at Heavy Iron City step by step. Jealousy and hatred filled Wang Fei's entire heart. Kang Chon came with great strides and blasted his fist towards Wang Fei. His eyes were filled with a murderous aura. The offspring of this great enemy, he would not let go no matter what. "I'm not willing on," Wang Fei roared in his heart. His face was full of unwillingness. He was no longer able to hide. "Little beast, stop." An angry roar came from the night sky in the distance. Kang Chon looked up and saw the third elder and a dozen Wang clan elders flying towards him. The corner of his mouth slightly pulled up an icy smile. Not only did he not withdraw his hand, instead, he increased the strength of his fist, and in the midst of the third elders and the others' furious roar, he fiercely blasted on Wang Fei's chest. Boom! Blood and flesh flew, splashing Kang Chon all over his body. On the ground, there was no longer Wang Fei's figure long ago. Only a puddle of bloody limbs and rotten flesh remained, as if it was a surer scene. When the third elder, who had rushed from afar, saw this scene, his eyes turned blood red, and he roared madly. "Old Piker, this is my first step to avenge those dead people of the Wang family. It's your turn next." Kang Chon wiped off the blood on his face. A murderous aura erupted from his icy cold eyes, causing the temperature round him to drop violently. At this moment, Kang Chon's mind resounded with those people of the Wang family who had died one by one. There was Ant King, there was the Grand Elder. These tragic deaths clearly surfaced in his mind. In the end, only the word kill remained in his mind. A voice full of murderous aura came out from Kang Chon's mouth, and together with the rotting flesh and limbs under his feet, it made him look even more like a god of death who had walked out of hell, making him even more intimidating to look at. The dozen or so Wang clan elders were all shocked by this intimidating aura of his, their hearts jumping with fear on their faces. The third elder's eyes were red, the corners of his mouth twitched, and a morose tone squeezed out from between his teeth. "Little brute, you give fire a burial." As soon as the words fell, a boundless killing aura erupted from his body. Both sides didn't say too much nonsense, and the great battle started at the drop of a hat. Kang Chon also did not say any more nonsense. His fierce true chi instantly erupted, and his amazing fist power enveloped the entire space. He fought one against many, angrily battling the third elder and the others. The people on both sides had a deep hatred for each other, and each one of them showed no mercy, and their moves were all killing moves. Coupled with the fact that both sides were incomparably strong, the battle was very intense. The Wang family elders on the third elder's side, the lowest strength, were all at the 7th level of Foundation Establishment, Cultivation, and among them, including himself, there were 3 8th level Foundation Establishment powerhouses, making them a formidable force. Kang Chon wasn't bad either. He had defeated Lin Wei, who was at the late stage of Foundation Establishment 8th layer, when he had just stepped into Foundation Establishment 7th layer, and at the moment he was at the peak of the 7th layer, his strength was even higher. Under their fierce battle, the surrounding houses and buildings were shattered by the aftermath of the battle, and everywhere was a mess. "I have underestimated you guys." After a long battle, Kang Chon finally got serious, putting away his fierce tiger fist and striking out his most powerful hegemony fist, which was wildly fierce and domineering, with a boundless might enveloping everyone. The third elder and the others were all shocked in their hearts. If at first they had felt somewhat impossible when they heard that Lin Wei had been defeated by Kang Tian, now that they had truly seen Kang Tian's strength, they felt that it was normal and incomparable. With the strength that Kang Tian was displaying at this moment, anyone present was not his opponent, including the third elder, who was at the peak of the 8th level of Foundation establishment. All of them thought that they were not Kang Tian's opponent. One must know that when the third elder and these people joined forces, even Wang Chun, who was at the 9th level of Foundation establishment, would have to retreat. However, Kang Tian had the upper hand at the moment, and his aura was still rising, clearly not using his full strength. Fourth elder, this son is powerful. Quickly go and inform the Lin family head, otherwise we are all in danger. The third elder transmitted his voice to one of the Wong clan elders with a grave expression. Although they hadn't exerted their full strength either, the strength Kang Tian had shown already made him unsure of defeating it. The fourth elder did not hesitate, and upon hearing this, he immediately drew away and exited the battlefield, sprinting in the direction of the Wong family's back mountain, moving for a help. Kang Tian looked coldly at that departing Wong clan elder. A flash of morose coldness surfaced at the corner of his mouth as he forced back the third elder and the others with a single punch. He turned around and struck out a heaven-escaping hands towards the rapidly departing fourth elder of the Wong clan. In the dark night sky, a huge palm of true chi immediately appeared, pressing down towards the rapidly running fourth elder, a boundless pressure filling the entire space. Not good, the third elder exclaimed out in shock when he saw this scene. As soon as his words fell, the huge heaven-escaping hand had already fallen, ruthlessly covering the fourth elder. The deathly crisis caused this fourth elder to throw an extreme punch, but he was unable to destroy the heaven-escaping hand. And in the end, he was blasted onto the earth with his person. With Kang Tian's current strength at the peak of the 7th level of Foundation establishment, the power of the heaven-escaping hand that he had struck had multiplied, and cultivators below the 8th level of Foundation establishment would surely die. Rumble, accompanied by a roaring sound. The ground where the heaven-escaping hand fell revealed a deep pit, in which the fourth elder's corpse had long since disappeared. The third elder's group couldn't help but be shocked and filled with disbelief. "It's your turn next." Kang Tian stepped in, cold eyes asterisk 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 asterisk, with a fierce killing aura, his whole body purple chi and blood boiling. Thick essence like wolf smoke rises up to the sky, exuding an unrivaled and powerful aura. A trace of fear flashed in the eyes of the third elder, roaring at the Wong family elders, "Everyone together, he's alone after all." Saying that, he no longer dared to hide and exploded his cultivation at the peak of the 8th level of Foundation establishment with all his might. The other few elders knew their situation and knew that Kang Tian wouldn't let them go. With no way to retreat, they could only fight with their backs to the wall. "My heart is invincible." Kang Tian's eyes shot out to lines of cold lightning. A wave of invincible conviction surged in his heart as he utilized his entire body's true chi and struck out a fierce bastard fist. This punch was his current peak punch, gathering all the essence of the Overlord fist, condensing all his beliefs. As soon as the punch was thrown, the wind swept furiously, and the ghosts cried and wailed. The third elder and the others changed color in succession as they united together, joining forces to resist this unparalleled fist momentum. Boom! As a thunderous sound rang out, the battlefield was immediately enveloped by a fierce true chi storm, and a terrifying wave of true chi shot out towards the surroundings, and wherever it passed, a house and building collapsed. The scene was very messy. In the midst of the storm, both sides were pushing each other's maximum strength to counteract each other. Kang Tian's face was cold. His fist power rose again. The terrifying true chi seemed to be unending, surging and volatile, impacting the third elder and the others, each one of them turning pale. How can this kid's true chi not be used up? Is this still the cultivation of the 7th level of foundation establishment, including the 3rd elder? Everyone's hearts were filled with questions. Kang Chon's true chi seemed to be inexhaustible, and after bursting out with this kind of attack, it was actually still increasing in power, causing them to be close to despair. This was actually the superiority of Kang Chon's hegemony blood and hegemony fist. Kang Chon, who possessed Kang Chon's hegemony blood, his own true chi capacity, was one of the best in his class. Otherwise it would be impossible for him to fight over the level. The hegemony fist is stronger and stronger the more you fight. The longer the time drags on, the might of the hegemony fist becomes stronger and stronger. This is the essence of the hegemony fist, unrivaled, courageous and forward. As long as the 3rd elder and the others didn't repel Kang Chon at the beginning, they had already lost. Puff, finally, one of the Wong clan elders couldn't resist and spurted out a mouthful of blood as he flew out, backwards. The 3rd elder's face immediately changed drastically, knowing that he and the others were afraid that they would be in a dire situation. As expected, as this elder was heavily injured, several more elders spat out blood and flew out. The situation in the arena was completely reversed to Kang Chon's side, and the 3rd elder and the others were only left to languish. Die. Kang Chon's icy cold eyes immediately surfaced with a grim smile. The true chi in his body once again spewed out wildly, and his punching power once again strengthened. This time, the 3rd elder and the others were no longer able to resist. They were all sent flying by this terrifying force, one by one. Their faces were like gold paper, their mouths spraying blood. Star-sucking technique. Ice-cold voice came out from Kang Chon's mouth. He had won a blow, but his momentum increased. Seeing the 3rd elder and others being blown away by him, he couldn't help but perform the star-sucking grand technique. At this moment, the wind and clouds changed. From Kang Chon's body rushed out a black as ink true chi. In front of him to form a black vortex, from which spewed out a powerful suction force. Will fly backward 3 elders and other people one by one suction over. The 3rd elder and the others who were sucked over suddenly revealed a look of fear as they stared at Kang Chon with wide eyes, their gazes filled with horror. On the other hand, Kang Chon, who had executed the star-absorbing grand technique, felt an unusual change at this moment, and he was surprised to find that a stream of pure energy was transmitted into his body along with that black vortex in front of him, causing his cultivation to grow rapidly, as if he had devoured those returning elemental pills in the first place. Star-absorbing technique. Nothing can be absorbed. So that's how it is. Kang Chon gradually gained clarity in his heart. He finally knew the greatest use of the star-absorbing grand technique. This might be the fastest way for him to raise his cultivation. After thinking about it, he increased his strength, and the black vortex in front of him doubled in size once again, completely engulfing the 3rd elder and the others in it. In this way, Kang Chon's cultivation grew like the wind, and after a few moments, he broke through the bottleneck at the 7th level of foundation establishment, and stepped into the 8th level of foundation establishment. As soon as his cultivation broke through, the true chi in Kang Chon's body multiplied, and the power of the star-absorbing technique became even more powerful, but in a few moments, he had devoured all the true chi of the 3rd elder and the others. His cultivation had thus skyrocketed to the late 8th level of foundation establishment realm. How refreshing, Elder Dan. If you had passed on this technique to me earlier, I'm afraid I would have stepped into the Jiden stage by now. Feeling the surging true chi in his body, Kang Chon couldn't help but roar. Just one big battle had caused his cultivation to skyrocket by a level. Kang Chon was increasingly discovering the power of the star-absorbing grand technique. HMPH. If I had passed this on to you earlier, you would have become a murderous devil by now. How about it? Do you want to go kill some more people and devour their cultivation? Emperor Dan coldly snorted. Kang Chon couldn't deny what he heard. He did have such intentions. After all, he had already tasted the sweetness. However, He was also aware of Emperor Dan's worries and calmly said, "Elder Dan, don't worry, I'm very sober now. Even if I have to devour my cultivation, I'll still kill those enemies and bad guys, and I'll never indiscriminately kill innocents. You only have one foot in the devil's path right now, and with your strong will could truly stay awake. But once you do this regularly, sooner or later, you will one day completely fall into the devil's path and be unable to extricate yourself. At that time, you will become a devil who goes around killing and devouring people, and will bring disaster to the entire flood continent. And in the end, you will inevitably be killed by a coalition of experts from the righteous path." Emperor Dan said in a deep voice. Kang Tian was shocked at what he heard and felt that Emperor Dan had a point. And in his heart, he couldn't help but be very thankful that Emperor Dan was there, or else he was afraid that he would really fall into the devil's path and not be able to pull himself out of it, just as Emperor Dan had said.